Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to my channel on finding your path to your best emotional and physical health, and a continuation of my series on complex PTSD and healing from childhood trauma in order to form more satisfying and welcoming relationships with other people. So with that, let me get into the very final video where we're going to talk about earned secure attachment really quick. So please don't forget to subscribe if you like what you hear. We'll get on to some other topics related to trauma and health in the coming months. So don't forget to get notifications of when things come out, approximately once a week or so. Also, please feel free to download my 5 free videos on finding your best emotional and physical health. And there'll be 5 videos on how to lay the foundation for that. So without further ado, let's kind of get into this one. I wanted to talk a little bit about earned secure attachment, okay? So even though we are designed to attach to others when we're very young, we've been talking in this series about complex PTSD and how ruptures in those relationships when we're young cause those attachment problems and then cause problems in future relationships, because we don't know how to attach to others, or we get afraid, or whatever is going on based on what happened when we were very young. There are ways to rewire those attachment nerves and foundation. There's ways to do that. So it takes a little bit of practice. Neuroscience is said that we can rewire those things and those neural pathways with ongoing practice and repetition, just like it was repetitive in the negative sense when we were kids, and now it's more appropriated and more repetitious in the positive sense. At least that's what we're trying to recreate. So with that, you have to think about, okay, how are you going to create this reparative relationship? You can do that, but like I said, it takes work. You have to find someone that can kind of help you develop the ability to stay in place with the interpersonal contact despite pain and emotional vulnerabilities. And that's the biggest part, I think. People don't feel safe in relationships in general sometimes, and they don't trust their own ability to pick a healthier relationship, and sometimes that's justified because they are so used to these negative relationships, especially if they've had a lot of relationship failures, like they've tried to connect to others, but they pick women or men that feed their negativity and don't provide a different relationship, which is kind of a whole nother issue we could talk briefly about. But if you've been picking the wrong person in your relationships, you don't know how to develop a different kind of relationship sometimes, because we tend to gravitate towards what we know. So if that's a negative relationship and that negative feeling, that's what we're used to. So we're going to gravitate towards that rather than picking something different because it feels off, because it's different and we're not used to that. So we want to pick people that kind of allow the feeling that they are acceptable, that you're acceptable no matter what you're feeling and experiencing. We're very used to being judged in general, just amongst each other. There's social pressures, cultural pressures, religious pressures, all kinds of judgments everywhere we look, right? And especially anytime we look at the news now, there's always judgments. Either you do this for social control to get this item, you need to submit to this medical procedure that you don't want in order to get this, and there's a lot of pressure and judgment throughout our world. So to have a truly secure, comfortable relationship, you need to find someone that can accept how you're feeling, no matter what it is. And that can be a partner if you're picking somebody different, but a lot of times getting out of that bad habit of picking somebody difficult is really, really, really hard to do. So we want to sometimes start with a therapist. The downside of a therapist, which is, I should say there's no downside because it's what I do, but you're with them probably for 1 hour a week. And that may or may not be enough for you to help change those patterns and get through all that stuff to help you form new relationships. And unless you are rolling in money and can pay a cash person, which if you have extra cash, I would highly advise investing in yourself with a coach or a therapist that will help you kind of move forward in that, and maybe doing a couple of sessions a week to help you kind of process through some of that stuff. So those kinds of things are what you're looking for, okay? A healthy partner or a good therapist. Healthy partner might have a little bit more interaction, but you have to be able to be pretty reflective about what's going on internally to kind of move through some of the negative stuff if you have triggers, or if you're not feeling anything at all, or you're feeling kind of estranged from that person, because it's very, very different. So one of the things to look for in a healthy partner or a therapist is someone that actually does the healthy rescue. And let's talk about what that means for a minute. The healthy rescue is someone that does not continue to let you engage in those inner critic thoughts. So you can go back to the inner critic stuff that I talked about earlier and review kind of what the inner critic looks like when you're kind of allowing those messages you got as a kid to attack yourself over and over and over again. And I'll put a link on that here as well. So you want someone that helps you challenge that inner critic, because that's the person that you should have had, or the healthy parent you should have had as a kid, to tell you that this is not okay and not to think that way. So if you don't have someone that does that, they actually will subconsciously align with the abusing parent, because they're allowing. If anyone's been in a abusive relationship, especially with, like, say, one parent is the abuser and the other parent sits silently and allows it to happen, happens more often than you think. It is extremely, extremely damaging. And even though people come in to therapy and want to face the damage their abuser has done, they don't think that they need to face the damage that their person that sat silently did. And actually, a lot of times when you're doing deep trauma work, that's the relationship that needs the greater work, because it's sometimes the abuser, they just accept how terrible this person is, and that they just don't want anything to do with them, and that they had all these problems. But the good parent, for lack of a better term, or the parent that did not do the abusing, did not do any of the healthy rescuing either. So the child, again, feels abandoned or unwanted or whatever despite that. And that is unfortunately more frequent than I would care to admit with working through this stuff. And some days I would wish that this didn't happen to people, but it does, unfortunately. So here we are to help people that get through that. So when we have those failures, you can kind of cause that rupture also in the relationship, either it would be a therapist or a partner. So it takes some practice for them to be intuitive enough to do that. Therapist is hopefully going to be better at it if they have good training. Partner may or may not, depending on what their level of development is in a relationship and with their own inner critic. So kind of look for those behaviors if you start getting into a relationship with either a therapist or a partner and you feel that negative stuff coming up. If you've learned to identify your inner critic, find out, how does this person respond to that? Do they tell you, oh yeah, you have stuff to work on, or do they help challenge that inner critic that you kind of struggle with? And then you'll know this person is in a better space to hold space for you to be vulnerable despite your emotional pain. Okay? So that's some of the things to look for when you're developing an earned secure attachment with either a partner or a therapist. Sometimes I recommend starting with a therapist or doing both at the same time, like if you're dating but you're struggling with relationships and then you're going to go to a relationship therapist or coach. You can develop that relationship with them and practice that in the real world as well with someone that's more of a romantic partner. So with that, I'm going to close up this series and we'll get into our next series once I figure out which direction we want to go. So please, if you have suggestions or things you want to learn about, please message me and let me know, and leave questions in the comments below so we can work on those and get you the information that you need. So with that, have a great day, and don't forget, if you need extra coaching on any of these things, go ahead and connect with me on the website. Thank you so much and have a great day.